Selecting a national leader, like a president, is already an enormous task, filled with debates and decisions that can shape a country's future. Yet choosing a new pope is something entirely different. It is a sacred act, a decision that holds the weight of guiding the spiritual lives of more than 1 billion faithful across the world. With the passing of Pope Francis, a deeply beloved and transformative figure, the Catholic Church now stands at the threshold of a profound new chapter. Conversations are growing more urgent, and speculation is sweeping across parishes, seminaries, and homes. Who will be the one to pick up the sacred torch and continue leading the Church into the future? Among all the names being whispered and discussed, one figure has captured particular attention, standing out in a time when the world seeks both stability and renewal. Yet behind the formal rituals and ancient traditions, there are whispers that this time, the process of electing a new pope may take an unexpected and fascinating turn. Some believe that the decision, though cloaked in secrecy as always, might already be quietly forming, even before the cardinals gather officially. Why is this particular name drawing so much focus? Why has the Church's future begun to feel intimately tied to one man? Could it be that the path ahead has already been shaped, known by a few, hidden from the many? In the Catholic tradition, the selection of a new pope is much more than a matter of governance. It is seen as a moment of spiritual rebirth, a renewal of the Church's mission in the world. That is why every step must be undertaken with profound prayer, reflection, and care. While no one outside the sacred circle of cardinals truly knows when the next conclave will unfold, Pope Francis's health had been an ongoing concern in recent years. Just days after celebrating his 88th birthday, the Holy Father returned to the Lord, leaving behind a legacy of humility, compassion, and bold leadership. Now, with his passing, the need for a new shepherd has become urgent. Though many faithful are mourning, they are also looking toward the future, wondering who will be chosen to guide the Church through these times of change. Multiple qualified candidates await their chance to serve. But in a world yearning for unity, simplicity, and faithfulness, one name rises again and again. What if, some wonder, the decision has already been quietly discerned, ready to be revealed in God's perfect time? It is at this crossroads that Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle steps into focus. You might be asking yourself why this name, among so many distinguished possibilities, has stirred such hope and excitement across the Catholic world. Well, the story behind Cardinal Tagle is one filled with qualities and experiences that seem perfectly woven for this historic moment, and as you'll soon discover, it's no accident that his name is spoken with such reverence. Let's begin by learning a little more about the man at the center of this rising expectation, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. For some time now, quiet speculation has surrounded his potential candidacy for the papacy. It is not idle talk but rooted in his extraordinary qualities, his theological depth, and his enduring influence within the global Catholic community. While many other cardinals also possess remarkable credentials and devotion, there is something about Cardinal Tagle that feels different, something that resonates deeply with the needs of today's Church. Born on June 21, 1957, in bustling Manila, Philippines, Luis Antonio Tagle grew up in a world where faith was woven into the very fabric of daily life. In 2011, his life took a major turn when he was appointed Archbishop of Manila by Pope Benedict XVI, placing him at the spiritual heart of one of the world's most vibrant and faith-filled Catholic communities. His leadership there was marked by a remarkable blend of intellectual brilliance and pastoral warmth. Just a year later, in 2012, he was elevated to the rank of cardinal, one of the youngest members of the College of Cardinals at that time. His ascent was not simply about titles or honors, but was a recognition of a spirit deeply attuned to the modern challenges facing the Church. His humility, his ability to connect with ordinary people, and his theological insight quickly set him apart as a rare figure among the hierarchy. Tagle's growing reputation earned him the affectionate nickname, the Asian Francis, a nod to his striking resemblance, in both style and spirit, to Pope Francis himself. Like Francis, Tagle radiated humility, preferred simplicity over grandeur, and placed a strong emphasis on pastoral care. His natural warmth, combined with his intellectual depth, made him a figure who could bridge generations, cultures, and even ideological divides within the Church. There are many reasons why Cardinal Tagle is now viewed as one of the strongest contenders to succeed Pope Francis. In a world where the Church's center of gravity is shifting from Europe toward Africa, Asia, and Latin America, Tagle embodies this new era. His roots in the global South represent a growing, vibrant portion of the Catholic population, and his election would send a powerful message that the Church is truly universal, embracing its diverse and dynamic global family. But beyond demographics, it is his heart, his theology, and his vision for the Church that make him so compelling. Cardinal Tagle emphasizes mercy, dialogue, and a profound commitment to the poor and marginalized, while at the same time remaining firmly grounded in the Church's doctrinal teachings. He possesses the rare ability to bridge the gap between tradition and progress, conservatism and compassion, qualities that many believe are desperately needed in the next era of papal leadership. As the Catholic Church journeys into the 21st century, a noticeable shift has been unfolding, a transformation, not in its core teachings, but in its very heartbeat. The Church is experiencing a profound demographic change. Once centered primarily in Europe, the vibrant pulse of Catholic life is now thriving more visibly in the regions of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. These dynamic areas, filled with youthful energy and enduring faith, represent the future of Catholicism. In this light, the election of Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle would not simply be a choice for a new pope, it would be a powerful recognition of this global shift. Tagle, with his deep roots in the global South, embodies the Church's growing universality, bridging continents and cultures with a pastoral heart that speaks to millions. Throughout his ministry, Cardinal Tagle consistently emphasized themes that resonate with the Church's ancient mission while answering the urgent needs of today. Mercy, outreach, and compassion stand at the forefront of his teachings. Yet, he balances these priorities with a strong commitment to doctrinal orthodoxy, ensuring that the timeless truths of the faith are neither diluted nor forgotten. This delicate balancing act has positioned him as a rare figure who appeals across the diverse spectrum of the Catholic world. Both conservative and progressive voices find a reflection of their hopes in him, seeing a leader capable of upholding tradition while embracing the need for renewal. Despite being younger than many of his peers within the College of Cardinals, Cardinal Tagle carries a wisdom and maturity that far exceed his years. Some suggest that, should he be elected, he might envision a shorter papacy, preferring to serve with vigor and clarity rather than be weighed down by the long years of aging leadership. Yet his energy, charisma, and spiritual depth make him a fitting successor to the path blazed by Pope Francis, a path centered on humility, service to the poor, and a church that walks side by side with the suffering. If elected, Cardinal Tagle would not merely continue Pope Francis's mission. He would infuse it with his own vision for an even more inclusive and compassionate church. Many see in him the promise of a leader who could guide the Church into a new era, one marked by deeper unity among nations, greater attention to the marginalized, and a fearless proclamation of the gospel in a complex world. In this way, Tagle is seen not just as a pope for this moment, but as a pope for generations yet to come. Now that we have glimpsed the remarkable qualities that make Cardinal Tagle such a compelling candidate, it is time to turn our attention to the sacred office he may soon inherit, the papacy itself. Pope Francis, whose passing marked the end of a transformative era for the Catholic Church, embodied many of the virtues that a pope is called to reflect. During his life, he faced significant challenges and even opposition, particularly from those who found his approach to reform unsettling. Yet his humility, his relentless focus on the marginalized, and his determination to build bridges rather than walls left an indelible mark on the Church and the world. Known to all as Pope Francis, his journey began long before he ascended to the highest office of the Church. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio on December 17, 1936, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, he lived a life shaped by simplicity and service. On March 13, 2013, he was elected the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, becoming the first pontiff from the Americas and the first Jesuit to hold the papal office. His election was hailed as a historic and hopeful moment, signaling the Church's desire to open its arms wider to the world. From the very beginning of his papacy, Pope Francis set a tone that was strikingly different. Instead of choosing a path adorned with grandiosity and pomp, he embraced the spirit of humility. When it came time to choose a papal name, he selected Francis, in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi, the beloved saint known for his radical commitment to poverty, peace, and care for creation. By doing so, Pope Francis made a clear statement. He would be a pope who stood with the poor, lived simply, and called the Church to its most authentic mission. Throughout his papacy, Pope Francis lived by these principles not just in word but in deed. He chose modest living quarters in the Vatican's guest house, rather than occupying the traditional apostolic palace. He spoke in language that was accessible to all people, using plain words to express profound truths. In every aspect of his life and ministry, he modeled the Gospel's call to humility, mercy, and love. Pope Francis was known not just for his teachings, but for the way he lived them out in every moment of his public ministry. A man deeply rooted in humility, he carried his down-to-earth spirit into his papacy, making it clear from his earliest days as Pope that he would seek to be close to the people, not above them. His public appearances reflected this simplicity. He chose to speak plainly, using language that anyone, whether a scholar or a simple farmer, could understand and find comfort in. This deliberate choice to avoid grandiose theological language helped build an image of a pope who was approachable, compassionate, and deeply human. From the very beginning of his time as pontiff, Pope Francis made it his sacred duty to stand with the marginalized, the poor, and the displaced. Few could forget the moment in 2016 when he traveled to the Greek island of Lesbos, a place overwhelmed by refugees fleeing war and poverty. There, he met personally with asylum seekers, listened to their heartbreaking stories, and embraced them with the tenderness of a true shepherd. In an extraordinary gesture that captured the world's attention, Pope Francis brought 12 Muslim refugees back with him to the Vatican, an act that spoke louder than any sermon, declaring that compassion knows no boundaries of religion or nationality. Bridge building was not just a theme of his papacy, it was its very heartbeat. Pope Francis worked tirelessly to foster dialogue between different faiths, reaching out to Muslims, Jews, Orthodox Christians, and even those who professed no religious belief at all. His vision for the Church was not one of isolation, but of open arms. He envisioned a global community where differences could be acknowledged and respected without descending into division and hatred. Under his leadership, the Church was not merely a fortress to defend, but a home to invite all people into. In the later years of his papacy, Pope Francis also showed a willingness to address some of the most sensitive and polarizing issues within both the Church and the broader world. While he remained anchored to the Church's traditional doctrines, his tone regarding LGBTQ individuals, divorced and remarried Catholics, and the role of women in the Church marked a noticeable shift toward mercy and understanding. His now famous phrase, "Who am I to judge?" spoken about gay Catholics, became a defining moment of his pontificate. It did not rewrite the Church's teachings, but it did soften the Church's voice, emphasizing compassion over condemnation and inviting countless people who had felt excluded to reconsider their place within the faith. Yet such boldness came at a cost. Throughout his time as Pope, Francis encountered significant resistance, particularly from conservative sectors within the Church. Some bishops and cardinals openly challenged his approach, accusing him of creating confusion or weakening the Church's stance on matters such as marriage, sexuality, and traditional family life. His openness to the idea that divorced and remarried Catholics might be welcomed back to the sacraments stirred fierce debates, revealing deep tensions within the Church hierarchy about the direction of modern Catholicism. Outside the Church walls, Pope Francis's advocacy for migrants, his impassioned defense of the environment, and his calls for greater economic justice often placed him in direct opposition to powerful political leaders around the world. Figures such as former United States President Donald Trump and Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro criticized his positions, branding them as overly political or too aligned with progressive ideals. Yet for Pope Francis, these causes were not matters of ideology, they were matters of gospel fidelity, rooted in the biblical call to care for the least among us and to protect God's creation. One of the greatest challenges of his pontificate was his effort to confront the deep wounds of the clerical abuse crisis. Pope Francis took steps to bring greater transparency and accountability to the Church, yet his actions were sometimes perceived as hesitant or inconsistent. A particularly painful chapter unfolded in 2018 with the case of Chilean Bishop Juan Barros. When accusations surfaced that Barros had covered up abuse, Pope Francis initially defended him, leading to a fierce backlash from survivors and advocates. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Francis later apologized and accepted Barros's resignation, acknowledging the failure and reaffirming the Church's commitment to justice for victims. Through triumphs and trials, moments of great hope and seasons of painful reckoning, Pope Francis remained a figure who stirred both admiration and controversy. Yet no one could deny that he sought above all else to be faithful to the gospel, to walk humbly with God, and to lead the Church closer to the heart of Christ. Throughout his years of leadership, Pope Francis remained a towering figure of hope, even though, as with any global leader, his path was occasionally marked by challenging decisions that invited differing opinions. In 2018, the Vatican entered into an agreement intended to improve the relationship with Catholic communities in China. The primary aim was to bring unity among Catholics who had, for many years, found themselves navigating complicated circumstances. While some praised this move as a step toward healing and reconciliation, others expressed concern about the complexities involved. As always, Pope Francis's intent was guided by a vision of building bridges where division had once existed, seeking to bring the faithful closer together under one universal church. His willingness to welcome and embrace all people was another hallmark of his papacy. His openness to individuals from diverse backgrounds, including members of the LGBTQ community, reflected his broader call for compassion and understanding within the Church. Though he firmly upheld Catholic doctrine, his emphasis shifted the tone toward mercy, rather than judgment, inviting countless souls back into the fold with open arms. At the same time, Pope Francis reaffirmed the Church's long-standing teachings on sacred roles, including the decision not to open the priesthood to women. These choices, rooted in tradition and careful reflection, occasionally stirred conversations among the faithful, but they also highlighted his commitment to protecting the spiritual heritage entrusted to him. Amid both praise and dialogue, Pope Francis's actions spoke louder than words. In March 2021, he made history once again by visiting Iraq, becoming the first pope to journey to a land rich in spiritual history, but marked by many trials. Once a flourishing center of Christian life, Iraq had seen profound changes over the centuries. Pope Francis's visit was not a political gesture, it was a deeply pastoral mission of solidarity, hope, and healing. His very presence was a testament to his desire to stand alongside communities who had long endured hardship, affirming that they were never forgotten. One of the most powerful moments of his visit took place in the ancient city of Ur, believed to be the birthplace of Abraham, the patriarch honored by Christians, Jews, and Muslims alike. There, Pope Francis led an interfaith prayer service, uniting people of different faiths in a shared plea for peace and brotherhood. It was a scene that beautifully captured the spirit of his entire papacy, a vision of humanity walking together, hand in hand, despite their differences. Continuing his journey, he traveled to the city of Mosul, where he paused in a square surrounded by the solemn remnants of churches that had once been vibrant centers of faith. Standing amid these ruins, he offered prayers for healing, restoration, and hope. His visit to Mosul, conducted during the ongoing health challenges of the global pandemic, underscored his unwavering commitment to reaching out to those most in need, even when obstacles made such missions difficult. Perhaps one of the most symbolic moments of the journey was his meeting with Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, a revered figure within Shia Islam. Their encounter was a quiet but profound affirmation of the possibility for dialogue, respect, and peaceful coexistence between faiths. At a time when the world so often seemed divided, Pope Francis chose to sow seeds of unity, one encounter at a time. In every step he took, whether in ancient cities or among refugee communities, Pope Francis remained a servant of hope, a man determined to remind the world that faith, compassion, and solidarity are more powerful than any division. His legacy of bridge building continues to inspire, lighting a path forward for the Church and all who long for a future rooted in peace. Even in the face of uncertainty and personal risk, Pope Francis remained unwavering in his mission. During his visit to Iraq, he pressed forward with a message of healing and hope, choosing not to focus on the dangers, but rather on the possibility of renewal for a land that had endured deep wounds. His journey was not about politics, nor even solely about religion, it was about humanity. He sought to offer solidarity to all people, reminding the world that compassion must triumph where division once reigned. This courage reflected the very heart of his papacy, a willingness to walk alongside the suffering no matter the cost. As time moved on, and as Pope Francis advanced in age, it became clear that the Church was quietly preparing for a new chapter. He had recently celebrated his 88th birthday, a milestone that brought with it a growing awareness that the time to choose a new successor might soon be upon the Church. His passing now marks a solemn but inevitable transition, inviting the faithful to reflect on the incredible legacy he leaves behind and to look forward with hope to the future leadership of the Catholic Church. Pope Francis had become such a towering figure in the modern world that his name and image were known far beyond the walls of churches or the borders of Catholic countries. His humility, compassion, and tireless efforts for peace had made him one of the most recognized and admired spiritual leaders of our time. But with his passing, many are left to ask, what exactly is the role of the Pope? Why is this position so vital not only to Catholics but to the broader world? The papacy is not merely a role of honor, it is one of immense responsibility and sacred trust. The Catholic Church stands as one of the oldest and most widespread institutions in human history, touching lives across continents and cultures. At its head is the Pope, who serves as the successor to Saint Peter, one of Jesus Christ's closest apostles and the first bishop of Rome. This lineage is more than a historical tradition, it is a living connection to the very foundations of Christianity. Being the spiritual leader of over 1 billion Catholics worldwide is a task of staggering magnitude. It is easy for some to think that the Pope's role is primarily ceremonial, but in truth, it is so much more. He does not merely oversee religious rites or offer blessings from afar. Instead, he carries on his shoulders the immense weight of centuries of faith, tradition, and theological responsibility. He is called to safeguard sacred teachings, inspire the faithful, and respond to the urgent needs of a rapidly changing world. The influence of the papacy reaches far beyond the confines of religion. A pope helps shape history, touch hearts across all cultures, and offer moral guidance at times when the world needs it most. He stands as a beacon of conscience, reminding humanity of higher principles: peace, justice, mercy, and human dignity. At the core of the Pope's mission is his sacred role as the Vicar of Christ on earth, a title that symbolizes not political power, but spiritual leadership. He serves as a living symbol of unity, drawing together an incredibly diverse global family under one shared banner of faith. Through his teachings, encyclicals, homilies, and prayers, the Pope provides guidance on moral issues, social concerns, and the deep mysteries of the faith. His voice, often carried through humble sermons or simple public gestures, reminds the faithful of their call to live the gospel authentically in everyday life. Each day for a pope often begins not with grand ceremonies, but with personal prayer and meditation. In these quiet moments, he draws strength for the monumental responsibilities ahead. Whether celebrating Mass at St. Peter's Basilica or leading the global Angelus prayer from the Vatican balcony, the Pope continually calls the faithful to deepen their relationship with God and one another. Beyond the spiritual duties, the Pope also stands as a figure of international diplomacy. As the head of the Catholic Church, he maintains relationships with nations, governments, and international organizations, advocating tirelessly for peace, justice, and the dignity of every human life. His influence often transcends religious boundaries, offering moral guidance in a world that often struggles with division and conflict. Throughout history, popes have played critical roles in moments of great transformation. Pope John Paul II's efforts in fostering dialogue and reconciliation during the late 20th century, for example, contributed to the peaceful changes that reshaped Europe. In more recent times, Pope Francis's encouragement of dialogue between communities, including efforts that helped foster improved relations between different nations, showed the continued power of the papacy to serve as a bridge between peoples and cultures. Through all of these roles as a shepherd of souls, a protector of tradition, a reformer, a diplomat, and a global moral voice, the Pope remains a vital figure for the world. As the Church now prepares to discern who will succeed Pope Francis, the importance of this decision is clear. The next Pope will not only inherit a tradition stretching back 2 millennia, but also a world full of new challenges and new hopes, waiting for a leader to guide it with faith, humility, and courage. Throughout his lifetime of service, Pope Francis became known as a champion for those often overlooked by society. He consistently advocated for the marginalized and oppressed, bringing the light of hope to places and people the world sometimes forgets. Whether visiting refugee communities or traveling to areas recovering from hardship, Pope Francis offered not just words, but presence, standing beside the suffering as a sign that they were not abandoned. In doing so, he echoed the mission of Christ himself, to bring comfort to the brokenhearted and to lift up the weary. Pope Francis, along with a few of his modern predecessors, emphasized that the Church must never lose sight of its call to serve the least among us. He called the faithful to a cultural compassion, a vision of a world that chooses solidarity over selfishness, generosity over greed. In an era often fractured by division and indifference, his life became a living testimony that the Gospel's heart beats strongest when it is closest to the poor. Yet the work of the Pope is always a delicate balancing act, standing firmly between tradition and the demands of modern times. On one hand, he is the custodian of the Church's ancient teachings, a guardian entrusted with safeguarding doctrines that have been handed down through centuries. These truths must remain untouched by the whims of changing eras, preserving the essence of the faith for generations to come. On the other hand, the Pope is also called to be a reformer, recognizing when certain practices no longer serve the mission of the Church and taking courageous steps to address them. Scandals needed confronting. Structures demanded transparency. The Church had to be made not just a beacon of truth, but also a home of integrity and compassion. Pope Francis faced these challenges with remarkable courage. Among his many achievements, he made significant efforts to reform the Vatican's complex financial systems, promoting greater transparency and accountability within one of the world's oldest institutions. He also turned the Church's attention more fervently toward care for the planet through his landmark encyclical Laudato Si', calling for environmental stewardship as a moral and spiritual responsibility. In every action, he sought to walk the fine line between preserving the eternal truths of the faith and addressing the urgent needs of the present age, a delicate and sometimes difficult path that few leaders are called to walk. Though he led a global community, Pope Francis chose to live a life of profound simplicity. Like several modern popes before him, he refused to separate himself from the daily realities of ordinary people. Instead of residing in the grand apostolic palace, he chose the more modest Vatican guest house, known as the Domus Sancti Marthi. This choice was more than symbolic. It was a daily reminder, both to himself and to the world, that leadership in the Church must be rooted in service, not privilege. Despite his modest lifestyle, Pope Francis carried with him an undeniable, almost mystical presence. When he appeared in St. Peter's Square, dressed simply in the traditional white cassock, he seemed to embody the entire history of the Church, stretching back over 2,000 years. In him, the faithful could see both a humble shepherd and a timeless figure, set apart, a man entrusted with a spiritual and moral authority that had been passed down since the time of St. Peter. After more than a decade of faithful service, signs of physical weariness had begun to show in Pope Francis's final years. Even before his passing, questions gently began to surface. Would he eventually step aside to allow a new voice to lead the Church forward, or would he continue until the very end? As we now know, his papacy came to its close not by resignation, but by his return to the eternal embrace of God. With his passing, the Church enters once again into a sacred period of transition. This brings us to an important and fascinating question. How exactly is a pope chosen? What are the steps that guide the Church in finding a new shepherd? The process of selecting a pope remains one of the most ancient, secretive, and spiritually significant traditions in human history. A beautiful convergence of prayer, reflection, and divine trust. The choosing of a new pope is one of the most ancient and secretive rituals still practiced in the modern world. It is a solemn process, bound by centuries-old rules and sacred tradition, known as the papal conclave. This deeply spiritual event can only be initiated after the passing of a reigning pope, or, in extremely rare circumstances, after a pope's voluntary resignation. In the long and storied history of the Church, it has been far more common for popes to serve until their final breath, entrusting their last moments to the care of God before passing the torch to the next shepherd. Resignations have been extraordinarily rare. The most recent and famous example occurred in 2013, when Pope Benedict XVI, citing reasons of advanced age and declining strength, chose to step down. His decision marked the first papal resignation in nearly 600 years, stunning the world and reminding the faithful that the office of the Pope, while divinely instituted, is carried by human hands. Now, with the death of Pope Francis, the Church once again finds itself at a sacred crossroads, preparing to entrust its future to new leadership. Once the passing of a pope becomes public knowledge, the governance of the Catholic Church shifts temporarily. The College of Cardinals, a distinguished body made up of the Church's senior-most bishops, assumes responsibility for overseeing the transition. These cardinals, many of whom were appointed during the reigns of prior popes, are tasked with the immense duty of preparing for the conclave and safeguarding the unity of the Church during this delicate time. This assembly, formally established in the 12th century, has long been revered as the collective wisdom and heart of the Church's global leadership. Owing to their honored status and critical role, they are sometimes affectionately referred to as the princes of the Church, though their true calling lies in service, not in titles. One of the most important rules governing the conclave concerns the eligibility to vote. In order to participate in the election of a new pope, a cardinal must be under the age of 80 at the time the papacy becomes vacant. This rule, instituted by Pope Paul VI in 1970, was designed to ensure that those charged with making this profound decision possess the physical vitality and mental clarity necessary for such a sacred and far-reaching responsibility. The future of the Church, after all, rests in their hands. The number of cardinal electors is generally capped at 120, maintaining a manageable size for the conclave. However, in practice, this number sometimes fluctuates slightly due to the natural ebb and flow of appointments and retirements within the college. Regardless of the exact figure, each voting cardinal carries a monumental task. Through prayer, reflection, and discernment, to help identify the one who will step into the shoes of the fisherman, leading the Church through the joys and trials of the years ahead. As the preparations now quietly unfold behind the ancient walls of the Vatican, the world watches and waits. A moment of history is once again upon us, a time when faith, tradition, and the whispering guidance of the Holy Spirit will converge to reveal the Church's next shepherd. As the sacred preparations for the election of a new pope quietly unfold, a fascinating question naturally arises. Who exactly can be chosen to wear the mantle of St. Peter? Technically speaking, any baptized Catholic male is eligible to be elected as pope. Theoretically, even someone who is not a cardinal could be selected. Yet, tradition and practicality have long guided the Church to draw its new leader from within the College of Cardinals itself. These men, regarded as the Church's most senior and experienced shepherds, are seen as the most qualified to assume the enormous spiritual and administrative responsibilities that the papacy demands. Before the cardinals can enter the conclave to cast their votes, they participate in a series of solemn gatherings known as general congregations. These important sessions are not simply administrative. They are moments of reflection, prayer, and dialogue. Here, the cardinals discuss the present state of the Church, the challenges that lie ahead, and the qualities they believe the next pope must possess to meet the needs of the faithful and the wider world. It is a time of listening and discerning, where personal ambition must fall away, making room for humility and openness to the movement of the Holy Spirit. During these meetings, each cardinal takes a sacred oath of secrecy, pledging not to reveal any discussions, votes, or deliberations that occur during the election process. This vow is not taken lightly. It preserves the integrity and sanctity of the conclave, ensuring that the choice of a new pope remains free from external pressures, political influences, or public scrutiny. What happens within those walls remains a matter between the cardinals and God alone. When the day of the conclave finally arrives, the cardinals proceed with great solemnity toward the Sistine Chapel. As they walk, the ancient hymn Veni Creator Spiritus, Come, Creator Spirit, fills the air. This sacred song is not merely ceremonial. It is a heartfelt invocation, a plea for divine guidance in one of the most critical decisions the Church will ever make. The atmosphere is thick with reverence as the assembled cardinals ask the Holy Spirit to descend upon them and lead their hearts and minds to the right choice. Once they pass through the doors of the Sistine Chapel, a powerful and symbolic ritual takes place. The heavy doors are closed and locked, sealing the cardinals inside and cutting them off completely from the outside world. From this moment forward, until a new pope is chosen, no communication with the outside is permitted. It is a time set apart, a sacred enclosure where human voices are hushed and divine whispers are awaited. The voting process itself is equally steeped in solemnity and secrecy. Each cardinal carefully writes the name of his chosen candidate on a ballot, taking care to use disguised handwriting to protect the anonymity of the vote. After each round of voting, the ballots are collected and burned in a specially prepared stove within the chapel. The burning of the ballots produces a visible signal to the waiting world. Black smoke if no decision has yet been reached, white smoke when the Church has found its new shepherd. The rules governing the election are clear and stringent. To be chosen as pope, a candidate must receive a 2/3 majority of the votes. This ensures that the man elected has the broad and deep support of his brother cardinals, reflecting the unity and continuity that the Church seeks in its new leader. As the cardinals deliberate, vote, and pray, the world outside watches the chimney of the Sistine Chapel with breathless anticipation, awaiting the moment when a thin plume of white smoke will rise into the Roman sky, signaling that a new chapter in the Church's history has begun. The sacred work of the conclave continues, often stretching across multiple rounds of intense deliberation and prayer, until one among the cardinals receives the necessary 2/3 majority of votes. Historically, there were times when conclaves lasted for months, even years, as cardinals struggled to find unity amid competing visions for the Church. But in more recent decades, conclaves have typically concluded within a matter of a few days, a testament to the modern urgency and sense of collective mission that guides the cardinal electors. Once a candidate secures the required majority, a profound and private moment occurs. The elected cardinal is approached and asked a simple but life-altering question. Do you accept your election as Supreme Pontiff? If he humbly consents, the Church rejoices quietly within the Sistine Chapel, for at that instant, a new pope has been chosen and a new chapter begins. Tradition holds that the newly elected pope is then invited to select a papal name, a name that symbolizes the spiritual and symbolic direction he intends to take as the successor of Peter. This name is not chosen lightly. It becomes a message to the world, a glimpse into the heart and soul of the new pontificate. When Jorge Mario Bergoglio was elected in 2013, he chose the name Francis in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi, signaling his desire to lead with humility, a heart for the poor, and a commitment to simplicity. After the name is chosen, the new pope is dressed in the white vestments that signify purity, service, and the universal mission of the Catholic Church. Then, accompanied by the senior cardinal deacon, he is led through the ancient corridors of the Vatican toward the grand balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. It is there, before an expectant world gathered below and watching across every corner of the earth, that the senior cardinal steps forward and proclaims the timeless words, Habemus Papam. We have a pope. Moments later, the new Holy Father steps into the light, greeting the faithful for the very first time as their shepherd. His first act is one of blessing. He raises his hands and offers the Urbi et Orbi blessing to the city and to the world, invoking peace, grace, and divine guidance upon all of humanity. It is a moment filled with both solemnity and breathtaking joy, as the Church welcomes its new leader and the world glimpses the future taking shape before its very eyes. Now, with the passing of Pope Francis, the Church once again finds itself on the threshold of history. Although many once quietly speculated that Pope Francis might eventually resign, much like Pope Benedict XVI before him, it is through death that his remarkable papacy has concluded. His legacy, however, endures, and the question that now stirs hearts across the globe is this: who will be chosen to lead the Church into its next era. Speculation, as always, abounds. Among the faithful, and within the corridors of the Vatican itself, attention has turned towards several names, each representing different hopes and possibilities for the future. While technically any baptized Catholic man could be elected, in practice, the focus falls upon a select group, those who have already proven themselves through a life of service, wisdom, and spiritual leadership. One name that stands prominently among the potential successors is Cardinal Pietro Parolin of Italy, who currently serves as the Vatican's Secretary of State. Widely respected for his diplomatic skill and measured approach to complex global issues, Cardinal Parolin is viewed as a moderate figure, someone who could continue to build bridges in a world that often seems increasingly divided. His deep understanding of international relations, combined with his loyalty to the core teachings of the Church, positions him as a serious and credible candidate. In fact, among many observers and bookmakers, Cardinal Parolin has been frequently cited as a leading contender, suggesting a strong sense of confidence in his ability to navigate the Church through both its internal challenges and its broader mission in the world. Among the names circulating with growing excitement and reverence is that of Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, often affectionately referred to as the Asian Francis. His nickname speaks volumes, drawing a direct connection between his gentle pastoral style and the humility that defined the late Pope Francis. Cardinal Tagle is renowned for his ability to bridge divides within the Church, earning the admiration of both liberal and conservative factions. His leadership style emphasizes compassion, listening, and walking alongside the people, qualities that resonate deeply in a Church that continues to seek renewal and unity. If Cardinal Tagle were to be elected, it would represent far more than just a change in leadership. It would symbolize a profound and historic shift toward a more inclusive and global Church, acknowledging the dynamic and rapidly growing Catholic communities in Asia. His election would signal to the world that the heart of Catholicism is beating not just in the old strongholds of Europe, but in the vibrant, faith-filled nations of the global South. For many, Cardinal Tagle embodies the hope of a Church more reflective of the diverse tapestry of its people, a Church ready to embrace the future without losing sight of its sacred past. Another potential successor comes from the African continent, a region where the Catholic faith continues to flourish with great vitality. Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo of the Democratic Republic of Congo has emerged as a strong and inspiring contender. As the president of the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar, he has demonstrated a powerful commitment to justice, peace, and pastoral care. His leadership reflects the strength and resilience of African Catholicism, a voice that is increasingly vital to the global Church. Electing a pope from Africa would be another historic step, further affirming the universal nature of the Catholic faith. Among the distinguished candidates, Cardinal Mark Owlett of Canada also stands prominently. Having previously served as the prefect of the Congregation for Bishops, Cardinal Owlett brings a wealth of experience in church governance and global ecclesial relations. His deep theological roots, combined with his administrative expertise, make him a steady and thoughtful choice for those seeking continuity and balance. His North American perspective would offer yet another important dimension to the global leadership of the Church. Each of these men carries within them a different vision, a unique blend of experience, culture, and faithfulness. Yet all share the same deep devotion to the Church's mission: to proclaim the gospel, to care for the poor, to defend the dignity of every human life, and to lead the faithful with courage and humility. As the cardinals now prepare to enter the sacred space of the Sistine Chapel, carrying with them the weight of history and the hopes of the future, the world watches in silent anticipation. The next pope will inherit a Church facing great opportunities, profound challenges, and the enduring call to be a light for all nations. And among the possibilities, the figure of Cardinal Tagle continues to shine with a unique and powerful light, a symbol of hope for a Church yearning for a shepherd with a heart as wide as the world itself. Among the other respected figures often mentioned in discussions of the papal succession is Cardinal Péter Erdo of Hungary. Known for his scholarly mind and steadfast conservative stance, Cardinal Erdo has long been a significant voice in the Church's theological conversations. His deep understanding of canon law and doctrine has made him a respected authority, not only in Europe but across the broader Catholic world. His election would represent a strong reaffirmation of traditional teachings, offering a vision of leadership rooted firmly in continuity and doctrinal clarity. Another name that occasionally surfaces is Cardinal Timothy Radcliffe of the United Kingdom. Although he is currently 79 years old and approaching the canonical voting age limit, his voice remains influential within theological circles. Cardinal Radcliffe has long been admired for his intellectual depth, pastoral sensitivity, and ability to articulate the complexities of faith in a world often marked by confusion and doubt. While his age may place practical limits on his candidacy, his presence in discussions reflects the wide range of qualities and visions the Church is considering as it looks to its future. As the list of potential successors continues to be discussed, what becomes clear is that the College of Cardinals is faced with a decision of immense consequence. Each candidate brings with him a distinct set of gifts, perspectives, and hopes for the Church's mission in the decades to come. The next pope will not merely be a guardian of tradition or a figurehead for ceremony. He will be a leader tasked with guiding the faithful through the joys and trials of a rapidly changing world, preserving the Gospel's timeless truth while reaching new hearts in new ways. And so, within the sacred walls of the Vatican, the cardinals gather in prayer and discernment, seeking not personal ambition or worldly prestige, but the quiet, steady guidance of the Holy Spirit. Soon, through smoke and silence, a new voice will emerge to carry forward the torch left behind by Pope Francis, a torch of humility, mercy, and unwavering faith. And perhaps, among the many names whispered with reverence, the one who will be called to step into that light is already being prepared by grace itself. The elevation of Cardinal Timothy Radcliffe to cardinal status has continued to spark thoughtful conversation about his potential role in the future of the Church. Known for his progressive views and his deep commitment to fostering dialogue within the faith community, Cardinal Radcliffe represents a perspective that resonates with many younger Catholics and with those who long for renewal and deeper inclusiveness in the life of the Church. His emphasis on conversation, understanding, and the pastoral accompaniment of souls has made him a beloved figure among those who envision a Church that listens more carefully and responds more tenderly to the needs of a diverse and evolving world. Should someone like Cardinal Radcliffe be chosen, it would signal a papacy deeply attuned to the spirit of openness and compassion, qualities that many feel are crucial for the Church's mission in the years ahead. At the same time, his election would be seen as an effort to balance the Church's ancient foundations with the contemporary call to walk alongside all people, especially those who have felt distant from the Church's embrace. And so, as the conclave draws near, the question lingers on every heart: who will be chosen to lead the Catholic Church into its next era? Who among these dedicated shepherds will be called to wear the shoes of the fisherman and guide the faithful through the challenges and hopes of a new generation? We invite you to share your thoughts. Who do you believe will be the next pope? Let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed this journey through the sacred process of the papal election, make sure to like this video, click on the next one on your screen, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring updates and reflections on the life of the Church. A new dawn is approaching, and soon, through prayer and the quiet movement of the Spirit, a new shepherd will emerge to continue the timeless mission of love, faith, and hope.